How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Nun Hey of Masechta BavaBasra. Friends, let's go weiter. Alright, we're gonna start on Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph, 5 lines into the Amud. Now I should have done this yesterday. I didn't realize that I should have gone a few more lines. So we're going to start basically like the final line really of yesterday's daf, and then we're going to get started on today. Shalach Rav Huna bar Ovin sent, and we had this the other day. Rav Huna bar Ovin, it said that he sent to the people in the Beis HaMedrash, the Talmidei Beis HaMedrash. So Rav Huna bar Ovin sent Yisrael shalach achsadim me'ovik kachom. So if a Yid purchases a field from Rabbi Kachavim and he gives him the money, but he doesn't receive the shtar yet, and another Yid comes and he makes a chazaka on it before the purchaser does. Ein motzin, meaning he makes a kin chazaka. Ein motzin because it's considered hefker. Ein motzin also miyadu, we don't take it away from the third party. And continues Rav Huna bar Ovin, and he says, and Rav Ovin, Rav Illa, and all of the rabbis were in agreement about this. And Mistama, we're talking about, Rashbam says, Kishmuel, like Shmuel, meaning when did Shmuel say this? Shmuel says when the person didn't pay the property tax, the taska, so therefore it was hefker, and sort of the seller really it wasn't his, it was hefker, and he had no right to be selling it, and therefore the sale to the first yid wasn't really a sale, and this second yid makes a chazak on it in order to, right, and he's going to pay this tax, so therefore it's his. So now on that topic of these taxes that the people pay, so Omar Rabba says, Rabba Hani Tlas Mile Ishtoili Ukvin Bar Nechemya Reish Galusa Mishmei de Shmuel, that the following three things, Ukvin Bar Nechemya, I guess he was the Reish Galusa, Ukvin Bar Nechemya Reish Galusa. So he told me, there's another guess that says Rava, I don't know. So he told me these three things, Mishmei de Shmuel, in the name of Shmuel. Dina de Malchusa Dina. Number one, that Dina de Malchusa Dina, that whatever the laws of the land are, those are the laws that we abide by. And therefore, Barisusa de Parsoy ad Memshnin, and in the same vein, therefore, so Rashbam gives two explanations for what this means. I think let's go with the second one, not because the first one's no good, but I think the second one's just a little easier. That, so let's go with it. That basically in Persia, so the Dina de Malchusa, right, the law, the rule was that we have a chazaka, as we know, Cheskas Habatim is 3 years. In Persia, though, the chazaka was 40 years. Therefore, if you live in Persia, so then it's not 3 years; it's 40 years. That's the law of the land. So that's what we go by. Fine. The first answer is a little bit more. If a Nochri had a field for 40 years and then he sold it to you, so now it's yours, but then somebody else comes and says, wait, but it was really mine, the Nochri took it from me, but if you had it for 40 years, then you can't take it away. Say it. The Pasar had mentioned, Vani Zarure, the Zovan Ara, the Tasko, Zabinu Zabine, and thirdly, I guess, also related to Dina de Malchusa Dina, is that, because of this rule, because of this law in Persia, that if you paid the property tax, then the field is yours. If you don't pay your property tax, then you lose the field, and whoever's going to pay the property tax gets the field. So therefore, on account of that law, that Persian law, if you live in Persia, and so then the Persians, the Iranians, the ones who were just sitting around waiting for them to shoot missiles at us. So if you live there, so apparently the halacha is over there that they have this property tax, and so v'hani zaruri. So if you have people who didn't pay the property tax, so they lose their field, and if you have wealthy people who are able to scoop up the field, so they pick up the field. There's of an ar lataska that they buy the property, and right there, I guess I don't know if they have to pay for it, or at least if the first guy loses it, I guess maybe they could scoop it up, and they take on the responsibility of the property tax. I don't know exactly how that sale would work, but Be'etzim, they're kona the field, and it says the Zavim that they purchase it. Who are they purchasing it from? Anyways, it's now their field, and they take upon themselves to pay for this tax. So this property tax, zabinayu zabine. So it is a valid sale because of dina de malchusa dina. That if the law in Persia is that if you pay the property tax, you can keep your field. If you don't pay it, you lose it, and somebody else can take it, and that the new person pays the property tax. That's the law. So Shmuel basically said three things, which are really one thing with two branches, right? That number one, dina de malchusa dina, and therefore because of dina de malchusa dina in Persia, chazaka is 40 years, and additionally, if somebody loses their field because they didn't pay the property tax, somebody else can scoop it up and pay the property tax, and it's theirs, and it's theirs forever. Fine. But this halacha, right, this rule, this law, is specifically with the property tax. Aval charga, but with the head tax. So over here, the Rashbam is referring to it as a head tax. Rashi, somewhere else, where is that Rashi? In Bava Metzia, described it as some kind of a Jew tax. Whatever, this was like a head tax. So it wasn't a property tax. It was each person had to pay this tax. And so if a person didn't pay this karga, this head tax, so he wouldn't lose his property for that. Rather, that was low. My timer. Karga akarkiv de gavre monach. If you don't pay the head tax, they come after your head, not after your property, right? So you got to run away. What does Rashi say? What does Rashbam say? No. Oh, yitbesu, either they'll arrest you, achite me'elav, until you can pay it somehow, or yivrach minir, you'll run away, but the point is that they're not going to come after your property, they're going to come after you. So therefore, this idea of like losing your property and somebody else will come and pay your tax for you, and pay the tax and scoop up the field, that only applies to the task and not to the karga. Okay. That says of Huna B'Rei Yeshua that actually for the head tax, Huna B'Rei Yeshua disagrees. He says not only is your land mishubad to the head tax, but everything you own is mishubad to the head tax. Even sari dechada, even barley that's already been harvested and it's now in I guess like a jug, some kind of a container or whatever, even that can be taken away and confiscated if you haven't raised mishubad to the head tax. Rav Ashi, this is an interesting few lines. Rav Ashi says, Rav Ashi, Amrli Huna Bar Noson, that Huna Bar Noson said to me, Kashi Ba Amemah, that Amemah had the following I don't know, query? That Amemah had the following question. Imkain bitalto Yerushas beno abachor da'avale roi ve'en abachor nota b'roi ki b'muchzak. Okay. What does that mean? What it means is that if a father passes away, okay, and we're saying, and he hasn't yet paid the head tax for that year, and we're saying that everything he owns is mishubed to the head tax, well then that means that, so a bechor gets pishnayim. A bechor gets twice as much as the other brothers. But that pishnayim only goes b'muchzak, not b'roi, right? So for example, if they were owed, what was it? Is it money also, or is it just property? I can't remember. But if they were like owed something, let's say they were owed property, maybe. Or let's say somebody owed their father money, and maybe they collect property from that or something. But anyways, whatever the bechor gets double, it's only by what is in the estate now, not what will come to them in the future. They have to have it right now. Now, if that's the case, that all of the father's property is mishubad to the head tax, well then, the shibud of the king, it has priority over the father's own control over them, possession of them, and therefore, you kind of the higher priority goes to the king, and therefore it's not considered like the father, that the state has the chazaka on this property, because it could always be taken away if they don't pay this tax. So therefore, the bechor should be unable to collect pishnayim since he can only collect pishnayim from what the estate currently has a chazaka on. But if the priority, if it's meshubad to the king, well, then the state doesn't really have a chazaka on it. It's ra'ui. It will have a chazaka on it once the head tax is paid, but it hasn't yet been paid. So therefore, how can a firstborn ever collect a head tax? How could he ever get pishnayim? So again, Amar Rav says, Amar Huna bar Noson, Kashi bar Meimer. So Huna bar Noson told me that Meimer asked the following kasha: Im kain, that if so, that all of a person's property is meshubed to this head tax. Well, if that's the case, but bitalta Yerushas b'no b'chor, then how does a person's firstborn son get pishnayim dehavale rotway, because this property, right, the father's property is only considered rotway, meaning it will be fully his once he pays the head tax, but until then, it's meshubed to the king. And a bechor doesn't take pishnayim from that which in the future will come, rather only from that which they are in possession of right now, but it's right now meshubed to the king. So says Rav Ashi. So I think the Rasha says amarti lo. So I guess I said to Huna bar Noson. If that's the case, afilu taskanami. But then what's unique about the head tax? Right? Say the same thing about the taska, the property tax, right? We said that a person's property can be confiscated if it doesn't pay the property tax. So then how could anybody, how could a bechor ever get pishnayim? Because property, forget about the head tax, what about the property tax? All of his, right? If he doesn't pay the property tax, he loses his property, which means that the property is meshubad to the property tax as well. So even if you forget about the head tax, the property is definitely meshubad to the property tax, in which case, how can you ever have a scenario where the firstborn will get pishnayim? Elama islach l'meimah. Rather, what must you say? Why does the bechor get pishnayim? The yoyiv taska vamis. Well, in a scenario where the father had already paid the property tax and then died, in which case at the time that the father died, the property was not meshubed anymore to the king until the following year, when there's a new tax the next year. But anyways, in terms of right now, he already paid his property tax. Therefore, there is no lien on the property, and that is why and in that case, right? So the bechor can then collect pishnayim because it's muchzak. So achanami. So just like we would say that by the taska, so say the zelbazach, say the same thing by the head tax, right? Meaning, if we say that by the property tax, we say the same thing by the head tax. The yoiv kargo of a miss, that it's talking about we already paid the head tax, so you can say that all of his property is meshubah to the head tax, and you could say that he already paid the head tax and then died, and in that case, the firstborn son would be able to get pishnayim. Rav Ashi says, Huna bar Noson, says Huna bar Noson, Sheltinu l'safrei the Rava that I inquired of the scribes of Rav for Amrulin, they said to me, Alocha hilchasa Krafuna b'der Vishua, that the halacha is like Krafuna b'der Vishua, that even the head tax, right, everything is meshubed everything is meshubed even for the head tax. But that's not actually true. Hasam la'okume milse hu de Omar that or de Amri. The only reason why the scribes of Rava had said that the halacha is like Krafuna b'der Rav Yoshua, that everything is meshubed to the head tax, it's because they had written documents to that effect. That and I guess people had confiscated stuff because they didn't pay the head tax. So they had written documents to that effect. So therefore, they were saying that that the halacha is like Krafuna b'der Rav Yoshua, but that's not actually the case. I guess everything is not meshubed to the head tax. V'Amar Rav Ashi says, Rav Ashi pardachas misayeh amaso. That a person who doesn't work, who doesn't contribute to society, and he just kind of sits around, so he nonetheless needs to contribute to the taxes of the city. Now that would be in a scenario where, for example, if the people of the city said like, oh, there's this guy, he doesn't work, whatever, so let's all chip in to pay his tax for him, he's not off the hook. He still needs to he needs to contribute. But aval on this guy, siyata d'shmayu. But if it's not that the people in the city got together and said we'll chip in to pay his tax for him, in which case we say that doesn't work, he still has to contribute. However, if it is the tax collector himself who says, oh, this guy, let's leave him alone, let's not collect from him, well, in that case he doesn't make it up because it's siyata d'shmaya. The Eibishter was looking out for him, he didn't have to pay the tax, and he doesn't need to chase after anybody to pay that tax. Okay, fine. Gewaldig. Omer Vasi says Ravasi, Omer B'Yochanan says B'Yochanan, a meitzer ve'achatzov, I guess a fence, and a chatzov is like, so we're going to learn about it in a little bit, but it's like some kind of a plant that they would use as like a border, as to designate, I guess, property borders, boundaries. So Amar Basi, Amar B'Yochanan, hameitzer ve'achatzov, that I guess a fence and this plant, mafsikim b'nichsei hager. So they make a hefsek by nichsei hager. So if you have two properties of a proselyte who passes away and everything's hefker, and you have two properties, one right next to the other, and they're divided by a fence or by this chatzav, well then they're considered two separate properties, and making a chazaka on one doesn't mean that you own the other one. You only own the one that you made a chazaka on. Avalinyan pei v'tuma lo. However, by pei'ah, which is leaving the corner of your field for the poor, or for tumah, we'll explain what that is very soon. So lo, then these borders, these bound, the meitzer v'chatzov would not be considered dividers. Ki also Ravin, when Ravin came, Amar B'Yochanan afilu l'fei v'tumah, also by peah and by tumah, these things would be considered dividers. Peah, mahi, what are we talking about by peah? The Tanan is, we learn in the Mishnah, ve'elu mafsik in the peah, that when it comes to a field, so if you have two fields right next to each other, so we say that you only have to separate peah from one of, you only have to leave one of the corners, you can view it as one big field, and you leave peah from one of the corners. However, ve'elu mafsik in the peah, but the following would be examples of hefsiks, of things that would make it considered two separate fields, and you have to separate peah twice. So the Rashbam says like a nachal esin, like a barren area. If there's like a barren area between these two fields, or I think in Hebrew, I think shlulis is a puddle. But what's this? I don't know. Let's see if I can find it quickly. What's this? A water-filled ditch. Okay, a water-filled ditch. Anyways, derech harabim, or like a derech harabim, a 16 amas by 16 amas area, derech yachid, or even 4 amas by 4 amas, even like a 4 amas wide area, v'shvil harabim, or like a path that the public uses to walk between fields, v'shvil hayachid, or even I guess a path that a single person walks through. Hakavua ben bimos achama ben bimos agashomim. These, right, we're talking about paths that people walk on, whether during the summer or during the rainy season. So these things would be considered dividers between fields for peah, in which case you'd have to separate peah from both fields. So now the shaila is, what about meitzer v'chatzav? Right, so Rav Asi and Rabbi Yochanan said meitzer v'chatzav would not be considered a divider, whereas Ravin or Rabbi Yochanan says that peah and tumah, meitzer v'chatzav, would be considered a divider. Tumah mai, what is the situation of tumah where we're talking about dividers? Ditnan, as we learn in the Mishnah, hanichnos lebika b'yemos hagishamim v'tumah b'sodeh plonis v'amar lachti l'makom alaz v'eni yodea im nichnasti lo so makom ve'im lav. Rabbi Eliezer mitayer l'chachamim mitam. And Rabbi Eliezer omer sofik biator sofik maga Tuma Tomei. Okay, so this is, what does it say? It says, somebody goes into a valley, and the valley is where there were fields and they would plant. So in the winter, in the rainy season, nobody's going there because the fields are planted, leave them alone. right? In the summer, I think we even say that you should allow people to like walk in the fields because you're not using the fields in the summer, so people go to these areas. But during the winter, leave them alone, right? There's food growing there. Let's just leave it be. So therefore, in the winter, since people wouldn't go there, it was considered like a rishus ha-yachid, right? It's not a public area. There's not a lot of people there, so it's considered a rishus ha-yachid. And as a rishus ha-yachid, so there's a shaila of safek tumah. Safek tumah b'shus harabim is tar. Safek tumah b'shus hayachid is tameh. So what if you have a safek tumah in a valley during the winter, since it has the halacha of a rishus hayachid? So safek tumah b'shus hayachid is tameh. Now here's the thing: what if you have multiple fields over there? What if you have multiple fields, separate fields? Okay. So now what if, let's say you have two fields over there, one next to the other, and in one of them there is a kever, there is a grave, which means that, a grave is obviously is going to make you tummy. If you make an ohel over it, for example, so it would make you tummy. So now what if you were in the valley, but you're not sure, but you're not sure essentially if you may have walked, let's say, stepped over the grave and become tummy to mas ohel. You don't know. So the Chachamim say, well, safek tumah b'shus hayachid, it's tummy. However, Rabbi Eliezer says, wait, it's taka a sveka. There are two suffix here. Suffix number one, did I go into the field in which the kever was? Maybe I was in the field with the kever, maybe I was in the field without the kever, in which case I definitely didn't touch it. And even if I was in the field with the kever, maybe I stepped over it, maybe I didn't. So therefore, there's like a double suffix. Was I in the field that even has it? Was I even in the field that has it? And if I was, did I step over it or not? So, Rabbi Eliezer says it's a sveka, and therefore it's tahor. But if you know for sure that you were in the field with the kever, and you're just not, if it's a single suffix, you're not sure if you made an oil over it, well then you would be tummy, because safek tumah b'shus hayachid is tummy. Now, that is what we're talking about when we're talking about a divider, right? Right. So Rav and Amr Yochanan says that a fence or this chatzav would be considered a border between these fields to make them two separate fields. That Rabbi Eliezer would say it's a sveka. So again, Tumah Mai. What's the scenario of the dividers by Tumah? The Tanan is, we learned in a Mishnah, that if somebody goes into a valley during the winter when there are fields there and they are planted and there aren't a lot of people there because everyone's just letting things grow, so it's considered rishus hayachid. V'tumah b'sada plonis, and there is tumah in a particular field there, one of the fields, not sure which one, I guess, or at least the person, I guess, or at least the person who was there wasn't sure where he went. And a person says, look, I was in the valley, I don't know if I was where the kever is. I don't know if I made if I'm tomei tumas ames tumas all. So Rabbi Eliezer mitayr. Rabbi Eliezer says tor. V'chacham mitamin. The chacham say tummy, right? Safek tuma b'rishus hayachid sveko tummy. But Rabbi Eliezer says tor because Rabbi Eliezer would say safek bia tor, that if you're not even sure if you were in the right field, right? Maybe you were in the field with the kever, maybe you were in the other field without the kever, so you don't even know if you were in that field. And then, of course, even if you were in the field, maybe you made an oil, maybe you didn't, so therefore it's tahor. Safek maga, but if you know for sure that you were in the field with the kever, you're just unsure if you made an oil over it and became tamei tumas hameis, well then, right, safek maga tuma tamei. Well then it's a single safek, and it's a safek tuma b'shus hayachid sveko tummy. Aval Shabbos lo. It says the Gemara that even though Ravin Rabbi Yochanan says that Meitzer v'Chatzav would be considered a divider for not just for Nichse Ager, but Oichid by what was the first example? Peah as well as Tuma, but the Shabbos lo. But it would not be considered a divider for Shabbos. Rava Omar, afilu leinin Shabbos. Rava says that they could be a divider even for Shabbos. The Tanya, as we learn in a Braisa. Hautzi chatzi grogris l'rishus arabim v'nicha. So if a person was motzi, otam rishus l'rishus, if a person brings out half a grogris, right? So for carrying on Shabbos, the shear is a grogris, a dried fig. So if you bring out half a grogris, though, it's not a full shear. So hotzi chatzi grogris l'rishus arabim v'nicha. So if he takes out half of a grogris, I guess from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim, and he puts it down, so then he'd be potter. But v'chazer v'otzi chatzi grogris acheres. But then he takes out another half of a grogris, and now be'etzim, in total, he brought out a full grogris. Behelem echad chayiv. So if he did it in one sort of mistake, with one absence of knowledge, well then chayiv. So then he is chayiv because it was one shogeg. So he's chayiv a korban chatas. B'shnei alamos. But if you remembered it in the interim, like, oh, oops, I shouldn't be doing this, and then he forgot, and then he did it again by accident. So then he is potter. Rabbi Yosef behelem echad. Rabbi Yosef says that not only to be chayiv would it have to be one sort of lapse of knowledge, but oichid b'rishus achas chayiv b'shtei rishus potter. If it's one rishus harabim, so if you take out half a grogris and you go back inside and take out another half a grogris into the same rishus harabim, potter. That's where you're chayiv. But b'shtei rishus potter. But if you took out half a grogris into this rishus harabim, and then I guess you walked over to your friend's house and took out another half a grogris into a different part of rishus harabim, well then you would be potter. So then the shaila is, what would be considered two separate rishus harabims, right? Right? You would have to have some kind of divider between them. So what would be considered a proper divider? Which is what kind of we're talking about, right? So meaning we're saying that according to Rav and Amar Rabbi Yochanan, right? So we had said according to Rav and Amar Rabbi Yochanan, who says that a meitzer v'chatzav is a divider for tumah, for peah, for nichsei ger, but not for rishus harabim on Shabbos. Rava says it could even be a divider for Rishus HaRabim on Shabbos. Rabba says Rabba v'ushayesh chiyuv chatas beneim. Aval karmel islo. So according to Rabba, in order for there to be considered a division between the areas of Rishus HaRabim, so there would have to be a chiyuv potter between them. A chiyuv chatas beneim. What's a chiyuv chatas? A Rishus HaYachid, right? Meaning because if you carry from one Rishus HaRabim into Rishus HaYachid, well then that's going to be a otzah merishus l'rishus. So that's a chiyuv chatas. So if between the two rishus harabims there's a rishus hayachid, so then they would be considered two separate rishus harabims, and Rabbi Yossi would say that you are potter if you take out half a grogris into this rishus harabim, then half a grogris into the other rishus harabim. Aval karmelis lo, but a karmelis which is not a separate rishus mida oraisa, so that would not be considered a proper divider. Abaye says, no, a karmelis would also be considered a divider between the different parts of Rishus HaRabim. Aval pislalo, but not a makom p'tur. A makom p'tur, right, an area that is less than 10 tfachim tall, or less than 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim. I believe that's correct. So that would be a makom p'tur. And if there was a makom patur between the two areas of Rishus HaRabim, that would not be considered a divider. Rava Amar says, Rava afilu pisla, that even a makom patur could be a divider between those two areas of Rishus HaRabim. Okay, but as the Rava the time, and Rava is consistent with his reasoning, the Amar Rava that says, Rava Rishus Shabbos ki Rishus Gi'in Dami. Fine. That a rishus on Shabbos is considered like a rishus for gittin, and Rashbam reminds us of a sugya Masechta Gittin that if a fellow gives his chotzer, what is it? He's like makne his imhikne lo chatzer, that if he's makne his chotzer to his wife, so that she could be so that she could receive the get there, but his garish v'zorak lo get v'nofal. Right, so and he throws a get. Sorry, I'm like reading part of Rashbam. So he's like makne his chotzer to his wife. So now the chotzer belongs to her, and then he throws the get into the chotzer. So if he throws the get into the chotzer, so it landed in her chotzer, and now so she's divorced. But what if he throws it into the chotzer and it lands on a makom patur? So we say that if it lands on a makom patur, well then she's not divorced, because he was makna to her the chotzer, not right. Only it wasn't makna more than one thing. It wasn't makna the chotzer and the makom patur in there. It was only makna the chotzer, not the makom patur. and therefore if it landed on the Makom Patur, it's not her area, it's his, right? It belongs to him. And therefore, just like by, Rava says that just like by a get, the Makom Patur would be considered a separate area, so Oichid on Shabbos would be considered separate, and it would be a divider, and therefore it can be a divider, and that is why Rava also says that this Chatzov and Meitzer could also be a proper divider for the Rishus Rabbins as well. So Rabbi Yossi would say if you have half a grogris here and half a grogris there, so then you'd be potter. Okay, fine. Where am I? So Ein Sham Lo Meitzav Lo Chatzav Mai. So what if you have Nichsei Ager and there's no and there's no fence, and there's none of this chatzav stuff. So then how do you, right? So if you like dig a shtickle, so then what? Can you be kone? Like, are you kone? How much are you kone? Are you kone all of it? So Perish of Merino. So we had seen the other day that according to Rav, you would have to like plow the whole field from one end to the other, and then back again in a new row. But it sounds like this option is so Perish from Rabbi Marino. So Marino says Mishmo, I guess in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Kol shenikres al Shmo, anything that is, I think Mishmo means Rabbi Yochanan, says the Rashbam. Kol shenikres al Shmo, that whatever part of the land would be, they would call the Ger's, right? So let's say the Ger's name was Yankel. So whatever was considered Yankel's property, so says Rav Marinos in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that even if you just dig a shtickle, right? Remember we had said yesterday, the day before, recently, that if you have Nichsei Ager, you have a property. We said if it has boundaries around it, so says Rav, if you dig a shtickle, so then you're kona the entire field. If it doesn't have boundaries, Rav said, then it has to plow one way and back again. Rav Marinus is saying the name of Rabbi Yochanan, though, a different pshat, which is, even if there's no borders, if you sort of dig a shtickle, so you would be koneh, whatever people would be considered Yankel, they would be considered to belong to Yankel, the Yankel the Ger who passed away. So Kol shenikres Hashmo, whatever they refer to as, this is Yankel's property. Hey Chidami, how do we know? So Amar Papa, Dikarule be Gargus the Pane. Well, this is what this particular well of his would be able to water. Right? What does Rashbam say? Ger mashka miboro. So by just giving a dig a shtickle, you could be kona whatever area of the field. Yankel the Ger would be able to water, irrigate with his well. Yosef Rav bar Avia Kamed Rav Asi. Rav bar Avia was sitting before Rav Asi, Yosef Kamer, and he says Mishmed Rav Asi bar Chanino Chatzuva mafsik b'nichsei ager. That chatzuva, that is chatzov, is able to makes a hefsik by the nichsei ager to divide up, and it would be multiple properties. And if you make a chazak on one, you're only kona that property, not the one next to it. My chatzuva, what is this chatzuva? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Shebo Ticheb Yoshua liYisrael ha'aretz. That chatzuva is what Yoshua used to make the boundaries between different when Joshua was dividing up Eretz Yisrael. So what did they use as boundaries, as borders? This chatzuva. Because the reason is, I guess we don't say it here, but Rashbam says, because chatzuva grows straight down. So you plant it and it goes straight down, and it works well as like a boundary marker, because it doesn't go into anybody else's field. It goes straight down. Right, okay. I forget it. Okay. Fine. Anyways, fine. Okay. Anyways. Okay. Whatever. Fine. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, says Yehuda Amar Rav, Lo mana Yoshua ela ayaros ha'omdos agvul. When Yoshua, in Sefer Yoshua, mentions different cities in Eretz Yisrael, those were cities that were on the borders. He didn't mention cities like in the inner areas of the territories, but on the borders. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Kol Sher Eira Kadosh Baruch Hu LeMoshe Chayiv B'Maiser, that whatever the Eibishter showed Moshe Rabbeinu before he passed away, so all those areas would be Chayiv in Maiser. Lafuke Mai, to exclude what? Lafuke Kini, Knizi, V'Kadmoni, to exclude the areas of the Kini, Knizi, and Kadmoni. Tani Reb Meir Omer, says Reb Meir, one second, okay, right, so it says Rashbam, they won't be chayiv in Meiser la'asid lavo. Okay, Tani Reb Meir Omer, says Reb Meir, naftucha arva v'shlama'a. Okay, that the Kini, Knizi, and Kadmoni are the naftucha, arva, and shalma. Reb Yehuda Omer, harser amun amov. Reb Yehuda says Kini, Knizi, and Kadmoni is Seir Amun Amov, and Reb Shimon Omer are discus asya ve'aspamya. Okay. Well, that was Daf Nun Hey of Masechta BavaBasra. Hope you enjoy. Peace out.